unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time. So let's talk a little bit more about AI and art, right? Art. Let's talk about art and AI, but AI in general, you know. I just got done recording a 20-minute conversation, air quotes conversation with ChatGPT, you know, conversation in which I was challenging it to, you know, about the notion that I don't think AI should be able to refer to itself in first-person human form or represent itself as being conscious or human in any way. Like the idea that they're taking these voices and you can have conversations with them and blah, 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 when they're not doing any thinking, and it's obviously just debate. And I did this whole conversation, and I thought about posting it on one of these things, but it's kind of boring, and its answers are too long. And I kind of don't want to exacerbate the whole problem of AI by yet again subjecting anyone to the idea that AI even has an opinion. It doesn't. It's lifeless. It's a calculator. It's predicting responses. It's going, this might be good to say. And ultimately, it's a gratification engine, you know, because they're making these things so you continue engaging with your hardware, with your computer, with your phone, you know, so you stay there and keep giving them attention. And I'm doing that right now, by the way. I'm validating these platforms to keep you connected to this little screen, you know. I don't necessarily feel good about it. I'm actually very conflicted about it, you know. I don't know that I should be drawing people into the crack house. It's one thing to be in the crack house, right? It's another thing to stick your head out the door or throw a dance party at the crack house and hand out flyers and say, come to the crack house. You know, that's different. So I acknowledge it in my small way. These stupid recordings listened to by tens of people encourage tens of people to stay in the crack house. How do I rationalize it? Well, I imagine that, you know, you're out driving in your car, doing something else. You're planting flowers. That's what you're doing right now. As you're listening with the headphones on, you're planting flowers. This is how I rationalize this. But anyway, so as usual, tangents. But AI, when it comes to making art, why do I like it as a tool? You know, there's all these conflicting things, but as a tool for making art, here's something that I really like about it, and that is that it is undermining technique. Oh, that sounds like a terrible thing to say. A lot of artists will get really mad at me for saying that. But for a long time, including my own art, a lot of times the technique will take center stage over the content. You know? Oh, the technique. And for years, you know, and I'm not saying that technique is bad. I love technique, and, you know, I doubt that I'll ever print out a print of an AI piece of artwork and hang it on my wall. You know, I'm past that stage in my life anyway. I'm not, and I don't think a lot of people will. I think, so there's two things. There's conflicting ideas that I have here. I think it's going to downplay technique and push substance forward. You know, because now everybody has access to an amazing technique. You want something to sound complicated and amazing and have tons of detail. Great. Push a button, tell it to do that. It does it immediately. It kind of seems like it undermines the people that had the technique. There's some sadness about that, but not really, because on the screen where a lot of this is consumed, it's flat anyway. So even if somebody does make something in 3 dimensions, it's most of the consumption is on the glowing screen and it's flat, right? Anyway, so there's a conflict here. So I don't want to sound like technique is bad, because if I'm going to buy something, but again, this is another advantage of AI. I think AI is probably going to increase the likelihood that somebody who actually sits down and actually paints something or builds something out of corks or, pins and needles, or makes an actual thing that requires hands, I think the appreciation for those things will increase. But on the other hand, the techniques where people are kind of relying on a technique, when they're just relying on the labor and the time and the whatever, I think people will be less impressed by that, especially online, and they will be more focused on, to me, what makes art magic. And that is the intent, the story, the purpose, I mean, think about it already. We're about a year into impressive AI visuals. Well, actually, it's more than that. We were kind of getting with super trippy visuals, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that. I mean, I remember working with that Google Dream thing probably about, 2017-ish, maybe later, 18-ish. But the era of really impressive, being able to look like a real serious oil painting or a really intricate photograph or collage, or especially in the surreal realm, we're a few years into that. And about a year into this looks like a human did it, era. But think about how quickly people have just become unimpressed by it. So what? I see my friends creating AI art, amazing images that just 5 years ago, if they existed, to make them would have required an insane amount of time, skill, dedication, focus, But now they just poop them out with a prompt. They poop out hundreds of them with a prompt, And I see them posting them, and, it's cute, but it's amazing how boring it is. It's amazing how unimpressive it is. How quickly it's just like, yeah, I don't care, because there's no heart behind it. And I'm not talking about the it's cold or it doesn't, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally there's no reason why the person did it other than the tool was available to them. And I don't know, they maybe thought that somehow it was an equalizing force that, look, now I can make impressive things too. It's not just that guy that spent 100 hours doing it, It's just like, yeah, but what are you saying? What are you doing for the viewer? Are you doing this for you, or are you doing it for the viewer? And right there's a fine line to walk too, because you want your art to be personally expressive and whatever, but there's a point where it's self-indulgent. When I talk about, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for others? I'm talking about, are you trying to make people think you're great? Are you peacocking? Are you trying to become famous or popular? Are you trying to influence them? And if you are, why? Why? What's the influence? Do you want to influence them to pay you? That's not that that's a bad thing, Well, kind of is. If that's the primary influence, it probably won't work either. Not with art. Again, this is why I like this AI stuff, is it's finally making people realize an argument that I've been making for a long time, a very long time with art is, what are you saying? What are you communicating? What secret are you telling? What about this requires bravery on your part? If it doesn't require any bravery on your part, I don't know. It's probably not going to connect with people, At best, it'll get hung over the toilet or something. It might be, and there's nothing wrong with having something that's just simply visually appealing, but I don't know. I think that even now, more than ever, the things that people will choose will more likely, because of AI, focus on the feeling, the message, and what something does for them. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. But I think so. I think now people are no longer impressed by simple, I don't know, what would you call it, busyness? What's happened is that the time invested in making something is bypassed. So all these tools, they're time savers. Images that I can now make an image in an instant that would have taken me 100 hours, 5 years ago, but I can make it in an instant now. I feel free from that because, first of all, when I would spend 100 hours on something, a lot of times it was this weird, insecure thing that I had. I even explained it at the time that, you might not like my idea, but you have to respect my work ethic, So I always tried to accompany my idea with a work ethic. And admittedly, sometimes the work ethic was the bigger portion of the equation, I spent a bunch of time, but maybe my idea wasn't so good. Maybe that idea kind of sucks, So there's this new freedom now. Look, when you have the time constraint, so if you're going to spend 100 hours, at a certain point, you're just going to have to commit to an idea, and then you spend the 100 hours. Well, if 100 hours goes by and you work on something for 100 hours and it stinks, that's a bummer. If you write a song and you hire an orchestra and you get the whole band together and you do 10 takes and you rehearse and blah, 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 and the thing sucks and you spent, a bunch of money on studio and people had to come drive their cars, that's a bummer. That's a real bummer. So, but that worry is kind of gone now. And the fact that an artist, that I can't fool you now with just simply some sort of time investment, it frees me to really focus on the content. I was explaining this to somebody when I started doing a bunch of, I made, I write music every day. Make songs every day. I invented this game called Ping Song where I'm doing back and forth songs with other people. You might have seen that two albums dropped within 2 days. Robin Coomer dropped an album that I wrote with her using Ping Song. And then my friend Lisa Light dropped an album that I wrote with her using Ping Song. And I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs with dozens of different people, not to mention all the songs I write on my own. But when these music AI engines came around, it was like, wow, if I can get the AI engine to be my band and give me kind of fully produced sounding recordings, that's when I kind of started realizing, I mean, I already was on this road. I'm on this road of lyrics. The game that I made, Pink Song, is about lyric and melody. Lyric and melody, not about fancy production, not about bass, not about guitar, not about fat beats, not about vibe, not about all those things, not about production techniques, but it's about lyric and melody, because that's what the human voice produces. Lyric and melody, right? So I was already on this thing. I was already on this train. I invented the game about 10 years ago. But then all of a sudden, this AI comes around, and at first, I couldn't necessarily control the melody, because now I can. Now the AI has caught up where I can just record a quick demo, feed it in there, and it will output a song that is my lyric, that is my melody, but also has, drums, bass, and all the bells and whistles, amazing. But at first, it wasn't. So I was kind of relegated as being just kind of a lyric writer and a chooser, an arranger, where I either thumbs up or thumbs down whatever section it gave me, and then I'd continue forward and thumbs up or thumbs down more and more different sections, as if bands are auditioning. I'm more like a Quincy Jones in that regard. And that was a lot of fun. But I realized, as I would make these songs, and I'd walk down the beach every day and I'd listen to these songs, and it was a very surreal experience because I knew that I'd written the lyrics, but to hear them performed by this thing that sounded like a human and these orchestras and stuff like that was completely magical. But suddenly I was listening to these things in a very much more disconnected way, almost as if I hadn't made them. And I could hear the lyrics, and suddenly I could hear weaknesses and go, wow, this song sounds amazing, but what's it really saying? And so the focus really became on lyrics. And I went through this whole phase for a couple months where I was making songs this way every single day, And again, that's kind of what I'm saying here, is that it doesn't matter the technique. The technique in a musical sense would be, oh, you got the orchestra together. Oh, you got this fantastic singer, Oh, you got this amazing drummer. Oh, you got all these layers, that a good recording would have. So that's all just kind of gets like, okay, that's available now. But what are you saying? What is your story? What is the soul of this thing? And I love that to me, that's what AI is. Whenever you enable time savers for people and you take barriers out of the way, you take excuses out of the way too. Again, sometimes when somebody records, and in the old days, let's be fair here, like in the old days, because of the expense, good songs would get bad songs would get weeded out long before somebody started writing checks, to bring in the orchestra or to bring in the big producer, the expensive microphones and stuff like that. So yes, with AI, now that all that stuff's out of the way, that checks and balances have kind of been taken out of the way. The gatekeeper aspect has been taken out of the way. So boy, oh boy, do you hear a lot of crap. Even with these amazing tools, if you go to one of these sites like Suno or Udio, you know this, you're watching your feed, you're seeing a lot of AI creations that have the elements that used to be only attached to things that had already been sifted, right? You're seeing things fully produced that are just garbage. The amount of garbage that's been produced in the last year is, well, I mean, it weighs nothing. Weighs very little, whatever space it takes on a hard drive, So it's not like it's filling the landfills or anything. It's just, zeros and ones. There's a lot of it, though. A lot of it. And I think it's made people realize, this is kind of one of the things I've been saying, is that I can't think of a time, has there ever been a tool invented that has increased the amount of artists in the world? I don't think so. I think much like an ant colony produces, a queen, this many drones, this many whatever, I think nature produces only a certain amount of artists, and it doesn't matter what tools you give them. You can hand everybody the best tools in the world, and most people aren't ever even going to use them once. And for the bigger section is people will use them for a few days, and then they won't ever use them again. There are only a certain amount of people in the world who, for whatever reason, and this could be a completely separate discussion, want to organize those thoughts and feelings into something that is considered art and share it with the world. And in my personal opinion, these tools focus more on story because nobody is impressed with the sound of a recorded orchestra anymore. I mean, sure, if you see the process of somebody recording it, the people that played on it, there's still going to be some emotional attachment to that. Like people are still always going to prefer a real singer over an AI singer. They just will. They're going to need to see the real person doing it eventually, because they want to be able to see their potential. People are impressed with human potential. They're not impressed with robotic potential. Nobody gives a shit when a robot does something amazing. They'll be scared by it if a robot chases you with a pistol, But nobody's going to watch a game of robots playing basketball on their own. I mean, maybe a group of nerds will go, they'll want to see this robot basketball team against that robot basketball team because they want to see what the other nerds can make the robots do. But even then, the focus is the nerds, not the robots. I mean, you see the robots, but when the cheering happens, you're cheering the nerds who made the robots, So anyway, I'm meandering. But I'm just saying, I post a lot of negative stuff, complaints and whatnot. And I like to try to balance the shit out. I really do I think it's good when things point people into the direction of what's valuable. And what is valuable about art is the potential for the good that it can do for your soul. And in order to touch your soul, it's going to require a person having a soul, and telling a truth, telling something that is hard to tell, because I have this theory that the reason why we enjoy art is that, there are more reasons than one, but I think the biggest one for me is that it makes us feel less lonely, because a good piece of art connects with a person and makes them feel, I don't know. It's a reflection of humanity, It's finding yourself in someone else through this magical expression, It focuses on the miracle, the wonder of being able to be alive and create, And there's something also that's magical and beautiful about watching somebody's intent, an honest intent. When you see somebody make a piece of art, a song or whatever, when you know that they made it for you, to help you through something, that in and of itself is wonderful. It's just like, it's also wonderful to see somebody helping somebody. We know that. There's this magic of seeing somebody helping somebody else. A good video of an undercover video of watching somebody saving somebody or helping somebody in distress, or just a gesture of kindness, that it's incredibly moving to see that, whether it be through media or in real life. You can be walking through the park and you can see two people enjoying each other's company, and, when you see that expression of reaching out and trying to make somebody else's situation better, and you see the joy and the love and the connection and the magic that can come from that. I think art at its best can reflect some of that, that intent. But that's not something that can just be cranked out by a computer. That intent needs to be there. It doesn't work. You can't just, you can. You can rehearse. You can do a play in the park, you can train a dog to limp along like it has a broken leg, and somebody else can rehearse and they can pretend to help that dog. And every time somebody walks by, they do the play. But then again, that's art, But what they're doing is they're synthesizing the real thing, and that's what art is. It's a synthesis of real things that happen. And in the best case scenario, it focuses on those good things, on those magical moments, and gives you a place, and maybe gives you a moment to remind you of that. In the background, while you're crunching numbers or doing whatever work, you can have this music in your mind, or this thought in your mind that focuses on, forgiveness, or being loving and kind, or getting over some sort of horrible thing that happened in your life, So yeah, that's my sermon. Tools are good in so much as they help you do good. Is that good enough? Anyway, thanks for listening.